Okay, admit it. Have you ever found yourself, like, standing in the toy aisle, just surrounded by this wall of brightly colored plastic, and you're thinking, this is the toy that's going to make my kid a genius?
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe that's just me.
No, I think we've all been there. It's this very common belief, right? That a stimulating environment is like essential, crucial for a child's development. But is there actual hard science behind that? Or is it more like wishful thinking on the parents' part?
That is exactly what we're diving into today. We've got some seriously fascinating research lined up for you. We're going to start with this groundbreaking study from, like, way back 1972.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Rosenzweig, Bennett, and Diamond.
Hmm.
These researchers, they used rats to investigate how our surroundings, our environment, can actually physically shape our brains.
Wow.
It's really wild.
Yeah.
So this study, I mean, it was a really pivotal moment in the field of neuroplasticity,
Right.
which is basically this idea that our brains can constantly change and adapt, like, throughout our entire lives, not just when we're kids.
Right. And don't worry, we'll make sure to connect all the dots, from those rat brains to what it means for our own human brains a little bit later.
Oh, it's going to get really eye-opening.
Okay.
So picture this. These researchers, they create 3 very different lifestyles, we'll call them, for their furry participants, right?
Okay.
First, you got your standard lab rat apartment, nothing fancy, but it gets the job done.
Right.
Then on the totally opposite end of the spectrum, they had what we'll call, like, the basic studio environment.
Okay.
It wasn't cruel or anything, but these rats were living in much smaller spaces,
Yeah.
totally solo, with very little to actually stimulate their senses.
Okay, so like the bare minimum.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And then we have the VIP penthouse suite experience.
Ooh.
They called it the enriched environment, but I like to think of it as, like, rat Disneyland.
Okay.
Toys galore,
Yeah.
challenging mazes, a whole crew of rat buddies to hang out with. Basically, rat heaven.
Living the good life. And to really drive the point home, they replicated this whole setup
Wait, really?
16 times
Get out.
over 10 years. Talk about dedication.
Oh, my God.
They wanted to be absolutely positive that their findings weren't just some fluke, some random thing.
16 times. Okay, that's some serious science right there.
Mm.
So what happened? Did all that enrichment actually make a difference?
Let's just say the results were anything but Mickey Mouse. The rats who got to experience Rat Disneyland,
Yeah.
they showed some really striking differences in their actual brain structure compared to the other groups.
Wow.
For starters, their cerebral cortex, the area of the brain that's responsible for, thinking, learning, processing information,
Right.
was physically heavier and thicker.
Wait, so they actually grew bigger brains just from having more stimulating experiences?
Exactly.
And not just bigger, like physically bigger brains?
Yeah, physically bigger.
That's wild. Okay, so more stimulating environments, bigger, more active brains. Are we really seeing, like, a use it or lose it phenomena when it comes to, like, actual brain development?
It really seems that way, yeah.
Yeah.
And this idea, it wasn't just a flash in the pan. Another researcher, Marion Diamond, who was actually a part of that original rat study we were talking about,
Oh, right.
she went on to dedicate her whole career to studying this very concept.
Okay, yeah. She's the one who said that famous quote, use it or lose it, but if you don't lose it, you can use it and improve it. So, like, what did her research show?
Well, she found that this brain-boosting power of enrichment, it doesn't just stop in childhood, it keeps going.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so her research showed that staying curious, like engaging in mentally stimulating activities, continuously learning new things throughout life,
Right.
can have a really remarkable impact on maintaining cognitive function even as we age.
Wow.
It's never too late to teach this old brain some new tricks.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, but before we all run out and buy those, like, brain training apps,
Right.
I remember all this hype, like, back in the day about playing Mozart for babies.
Ah, yes, the infamous Mozart effect. You bring up a good point. While that original study, it did suggest there might be a temporary boost in certain cognitive skills after listening to Mozart.
Right.
The media kind of ran with it.
Hell yeah.
And suddenly, parents everywhere thought that strapping headphones on their newborns was like a shortcut to raising little Einsteins.
Right. Little Mozart's everywhere. So it's not about quick fixes or magic Mozart.
Exactly. It's about understanding that our brains, they're constantly being shaped, molded by our experiences, for better or for worse.
Right.
And that actually brings us to another important layer of this whole brain environment equation.
Okay.
What happens when those environments include things that might not be so good for our brains?
You mean like don't eat the paint chips kind of thing?
Precisely. It's not just about providing that positive stimulation, but also about minimizing exposure to potential harms. That's where a 2006 study by Weiss and Bellinger comes in.
Okay.
They were looking at the interplay between environmental toxins, socioeconomic factors, and brain development.
Okay. So unpacking that a little bit. Socioeconomic factors, environmental toxins. This is all connected.
Sadly, yes. This study showed that children growing up in poverty, they're often facing a double whammy.
Right.
Not only are they more likely to be exposed to things like lead, pollution, poor air quality,
Right.
but these environments may also lack those stimulating experiences that we know can actually help buffer against those negative impacts.
Wow.
It's like a perfect storm for hindering healthy brain development.
So having access to those enriching experiences, especially early in life, could be even more crucial for children who are facing these additional challenges.
Exactly. And that's why this research is so important, so compelling. It really underscores how important it is to provide all children, every single one, with the opportunity to grow up in environments that nurture those developing brains.
Right.
Give them the best possible chance to reach their full potential.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It really makes you think about the impact of our surroundings, not just on children, but like throughout our whole lives,
Right. So we've got these like remarkable rat brains showing us the power of rat Disneyland. We've got evidence that keeping our brains engaged throughout life can help keep them sharp. But how do we take all this fascinating science and actually apply it to our own lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What does it actually mean to create an enriched environment for ourselves and for the people that we care about?
Right, because it can't just be about like buying all the toys.
Yeah.
Right, there's got to be more to it than that.
Absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting because enrichment, it isn't a one-size-fits-all concept.
Right.
It's about understanding what truly engages our minds, what makes us come alive.
It's kind of that old saying, different strokes for different folks, but
Yeah.
for our brains.
Exactly. For one person, it might be totally losing themselves in a good book. For someone else, it could be exploring like a new hiking trail or even, trying their hand at pottery. The key is finding those activities that spark curiosity and push us a bit, just beyond our comfort zones. So it's not just about like cramming our schedules with are these activities, right? It's more about being mindful about the experiences that we're choosing.
Yeah.
And how they're feeding our minds.
Precisely. It's about cultivating a lifestyle that embraces like novelty, challenges our thinking, keeps those synaptic connections firing.
Which kind of circles back to Marion Diamond and like that whole lifelong learning concept, right? It's not just about kids needing stimulation.
Right.
It's about all of us, no matter our age, really benefiting from those brain-boosting experiences.
Absolutely. And it really doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
It could be as simple as like, learning a new language or picking up an instrument.
Right.
Or even just, engaging in more stimulating conversations. That the point is to keep our minds engaged and adaptable.
So like those brain games that like my aunt's always raving about might not be such a bad idea after all.
Hey, they could be a piece of the puzzle. But remember, it's about finding what truly resonates with you.
Right, right.
If Sudoku isn't your thing, no problem. Try a creative writing class or volunteer at like a local community garden.
Yeah.
There are honestly endless possibilities when it comes to enriching our lives and, in turn, our brains.
It's almost like we hold the power to shape our own brain destiny just by being more conscious about the experiences that we're inviting into our lives.
And what's even more profound is that this power, it extends beyond ourselves. If we think back to that rat study, those different environments, they weren't just impacting individual rats. They were shaping the potential of the whole group.
Oh, wow. So are you saying that by creating more enriching environments in our communities, like investing in early childhood education, providing access to things like art and music programs, even just having more green spaces, that these things could actually have like a ripple effect?
Yeah.
That they're influencing the brain development and potential of an entire generation?
It's definitely a question worth pondering, isn't it? If we take those same principles from that rat study, that enriched versus impoverished environments and apply them to like a societal level.
Yeah.
What kind of impact could we potentially have? What if we start viewing creating these brain-boosting environments not just as a personal responsibility, but like a collective one, you know? It's a pretty exciting thought.
It really is. It really makes you think about the legacy that we're creating, not just for ourselves, but for like future generations.
Exactly. And it all starts with understanding that profound connection, that very real connection between our experiences and our brains.
Well, there you have it. And a deep dive into the incredible world of neuroplasticity, the power of those enriching experiences, and a whole lot to ponder about how we can all create more of those brain-boosting environments in our own lives and the lives of the people around us.
It's been a pleasure, as always, exploring this topic with you.
Until next time, keep those brains stimulated, everybody.